Hello and welcome back to part 2 of the advanced train tutorial. I released the last video about a couple days ago, and I have added some changes to the train, such as the train bogies. I've positioned them and rescaled them a bit. So yeah, if you want to, you should change the size and position of the bogies depending on how large your tracks are, and that will definitely increase how smooth the train will turn and perform. Without further ado, let's start the video. Okay, first let's organize this train folder. Let's create a new folder and let's call it train folder, and let's just drag everything inside of it. Then let's create another folder and let's call it chassis. So this is where all the functional parts will be, and we can put all this into here. Next, let's add another folder and let's call it events. Duplicate it and let's call it scripts. Okay, so this is where all the scripts will go, and this is where all the events will go, and this is where all the moving parts, all the actual functional parts will go. We'll add a model folder later, which will weld the model onto the chassis. So yeah, let's create into the scripts. Let's create a few scripts. Local insert. Server. And oops. Weld. Okay. Next, let's also add a vehicle seat. Let's click show orientation indicator so we know which way the seat is facing, and let's just position it that. Let's move it into the front. Just scale it. Now we have our seat. Let's go into our seat and let's disable heads up display. Next, we want to weld the vehicle seat into the base. So we just do that, and we just click on the base, and it's welded. Okay. So let's go into scripts, and let's also add a local script, and let's call it drive. So this script will be inserted into the player whenever they sit down. Let's also add a object value inside here, and let's call it train. This is how we can get the train on the client. So we click train and we click the train model. Okay. Let's also get it on the server so we don't have to do script.parent or whatever. And yeah, so that's basically how structuring works. Okay, let's get into coding the first script, which is local insert. First, let's get the seat. So local seat equals, let's get an object value first. And let's call it, no, let's go into here. Let's call it seat. Okay, and then we drag seat and we click vehicle seat. So local seat equals script.seat.value. The reason why I made an object value is doing script.parent.vehicle seat would be very tedious. So object values are pretty awesome. Next, let's get the client script, client script. Oh my god, and script.drive, and now we can clone this into the player whenever we want. So let's also reference the player and reference the client clone. Okay. Next, let's detect whenever a player sits in the seat. So we do seat, get property change signal, occupant. And we connect that function and enter. And then we do seat.occupant. Then let's get our player. We do player equals, let's actually get the player service. So local player service equal game get service players. Alright, so player equals player service get player from character, and then the character is the occupant is the humanoid, so we do humanoid dot parent. So I do seat dot occupant dot parent. Okay, and let's get the let's make the client clone equal to the client script cloned, and we just put it under player GUI and enable it. Let's also disable it here so it doesn't error out or whatever. And let's also set the network ownership. The network ownership is probably one of the more important parts, since you can network ownership allows you to control everything. It helps you put this into the clients. It's sort of hard to explain. I should make another video on it, but it basically makes the owner of this train under the player. Okay, so we do seat set network ownership to the player, and then we do else if client clone, then client clone destroy, and then we do client clone equals nil, and then we do seat set network ownership auto. That just basically resets the network owner. Oh yeah, since the character has mass, it could affect the linear velocity. So we go here, let's do for every underscore part in pairs player dot character get descendants, do if part, oh my god, if part is a base part, then part dot massless equals true. Okay, now our local insert script is done. Oh, actually a quick fix, we want to get rid of this local. I was figuring out why the client clone didn't delete. My bad. Alright, now we can test our network ownership. So let's go to the top right corner and we can see our visualization modes. Oh my god. And we go down here and we click network owners. Now we can see our network owners. So the train is on the server right now, so it's white, and we are a client, so we're green, and we hop on the train and the train automatically becomes client-sided. This means the train is now under us, and now when we leave the train, it goes back to the server. If we go here onto the train, we can also see our drive script, see player GUI, we have our drive, and we have our train. Go to reference object, and we have our train selected. We jump out, the drive script disappears. Okay, next let's code our client. First, let's just get a few things. Run service, so local run service, game, get service, run service, and let's get user input service. So local UIS equals game, get service, user input service, also get tween service. Tween service. Okay, let's also get our train variable, so local train equals script.train.value. See our train there. Let's also get our vehicle seat, so local vehicle seat equals train.train folder.vehicle seat. Let's also get the linear velocity, so local linear velocity equals train folder.chassis.bogey-base.linear velocity. Okay. Now that we have that done, let's just get our inputs. We go uis.input began, connect function, input, and game process event. So essentially what a game process event is, say you press escape and you're in the Roblox menu thing. That's a game process event. So we don't want that. We don't want when you press escape and you're in the Roblox menu, you can't drive the train. So we do if game process event, then return to end. And that basically means if it's a game process event, it just returns back to the next thing. We do if input dot keycode equals enum dot keycode dot g. Let's also add a direction. I will be copying the acceleration script from my first tutorial, and then I will make multiple other tutorials showing how you can make something like a throttle and brake system, as well as whatever acceleration modes you guys want. So let's go here and let's click direction equals 1. Okay. And let's do if direction equals 1, then direction equals -1. Then we do else direction equals 1. We don't gotta worry about too much about this for now. Let's get started coding our movement. So let's do run service dot render stepped connect function. Okay. And then right now I'll just copy what I did last time. Right, so if direction equals 1, then if vehicle seat throttle is bigger than 0, then and then we can copy that if it's less than 0, and we do else if direction equals -1. Okay, we just copy and paste that. Okay, and we do that. And then we can just do the local speed equals vehicle seat dot throttle 0.25. We can do let's also get a line velocity variable. Line velocity, let's put that as 0. Then line velocity equals math clamp line velocity. No, not that. It was linear velocity dot line velocity. Plus speed 0 and 50. Okay. This just basically makes the movement smooth. Okay. We just do that as well. Since the vehicle seat dot throttle makes it both negative and positive, depending if you're pressing W and S, so don't gotta worry about that. Although in the future we're gonna switch to user input service to get the inputs, and then we just copy and paste this part, this part like that, and we just change these values. Okay. Change it to -50 and 0. Okay. Let's also get since linear velocity it isn't client-sided. Okay, so even if you have network ownership, unlike vector force, for example, you won't be able to control it if you're on the client. So we're gonna have to make an event. Let's try a remote event. Although you could use a unreliable remote event, which could improve performance, I'll just use a remote event just to test it out. Okay, and let's just call it speed event. Okay, we have our speed event, and then we can we don't have to reference it. Actually, let's make a reference for events. Okay, so local events, equals train folder events. Okay, we do events speed event fire server line velocity. So we just fire whatever line velocity the client has right now. Okay, let's go in our server and let's get our train. Local train equals script.train.value. Local events equals train folder events, and then do speed event or events speed event on server event connect function. Okay, and let's get our player, let's get our speed, and we do that. Let's also get our linear velocity. So local linear velocity, we'll just copy this from here. That, and we do linear velocity line velocity equals speed. Okay. To change direction, let's also make it so the line velocity has to be 0. Okay. And line velocity equals 0. So you can't change it midway. Okay. And let's see if it actually works or if I have to debug this. And we can see it works. I'm pressing W right now and it is accelerating. And when I hold S, it's gonna be deaccelerating, and we can see it slowly come to a stop. I'm holding S, but it's not reversing until I press G. I can... Oh. Oh, okay. We're going to need to increase the max force because it's not moving it even when it's at linear velocity 1 or whatever. So I think if we increase it, go into the train, the chassis spooky base linear velocity, we can see it's line velocity 0, and then we can reverse. Okay, yeah, it works. I think my keyboard just broken or something. We're at 0, and then we can do that. Okay. Now that works, we can hit stop. And yeah, so that's our acceleration script. So next, let's make some UI. Okay, so I already had a UI made. So basically you want to make a started UI or screen UI and rename it to train UI, add a background or whatever. You can add any detail you want. The main key things I want you to reference correctly is the brake background and the throttle background, the direction, and the speed. Okay, the brake background you see here is basically a fill, and we can adjust it depending on what we want. Make sure to set the anchor point to 0.5 and 1, and not 0.5, 0.5, and you get that. Okay, so 0.5 and 1, put it there, and then you can see our size, our Y. If you put it up and down, it'll become 0 when it's at the bottom, and become 1 when it's at the top. Okay. And same thing with this. Our throttle, same thing. Our speed, you can do whatever, just label it speed, and direction, label it direction. Okay, I'll put this train GUI inside of Drive. Okay, and let me reference it. Okay, local train GUI equals script.train GUI. We do local background equals train GUI dot background. Let's get our fill for both of this. So local brake fill equals background dot brake background dot fill, and let's get the same thing for throttle. Throttle, not that. Throttle background. Okay, let's also get our speed. So local speed text equals background dot speed, and local direction text equals background dot direction. And yeah, so if we do here, direction, if it's -1, it means it's backwards, so we do direction text equals reverse. We copy and paste, and let's call it forward. And then for here, speed text equals line velocity. Line velocity, and then yeah, so it changes your text. If we hit play here and we spawn in, you can see our speed going up and down. Now if you don't want this, you can just do math.round and just round the speed. And if I go to 0, click G and reverse, you can see I reverse. Next, let's code these throttle and brake. Right now, I'll just make it purely for cosmetic reasons. So I do vehicle seat.throttle equals 1, so this is forward. And else if vehicle seat.throttle equals -1, then else. And then let's create our tween service for the fills. So we do tween service, create throttle fill. Alright, and we do tween info dot tween info dot new 0.5. Let's get their size equals udmi2 dot new 1010. So that means it's fully full. I know I'm running this like every render step, but once we, in a future tutorial, once we find it with user input service, we won't need to run it every frame. Okay, I'm going to do brake fill, same thing with brake fill. Copy and paste these two down here, and we just make it 0. Okay, now our fills should be fully coded. We go here, you can see, throttle, and brake. So yeah, I guess that's the end of the tutorial. If it's, you can add some extra checks, check the direction, and change this to throttle if you want, because it does show brake even though you're throttling backwards. But yeah, this is basically it. You can notice the train shaking, but you just need to adjust the bogies a bit depending on your specs. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. The next tutorial I'll probably make sometime either in next week or the week after. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed and learned something new from this.